Call to order the Lincoln Community High School District 210, Thursday, June 21st, Board of Education regular meeting. Please rise as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Glass. Ms. Janice Doyle. Mr. Lucetti.
Here.
Mr. Lulo.
Here.
Mr. Janik.
Here.
Mr. Costick.
Here.
Mr. Kirky.
Here. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is public comment. I have 3 people signed up. Annette Reamer, please.
My name is Annette Raymer. I had emailed all of you in regards to the activity fee, which I know is being rediscussed again tonight. I have to begin by saying, first of all, I'm kind of disappointed in the board, not every member, but many of the members, because I emailed each and every one of you, including Dr. Tingley. Dr. Tingley did respond and said if I had additional questions to please contact him. I contacted him 4 times within 72 hours and only got a call back because unfortunately poor Linda took my last call and I got kind of persistent telling him he needed to call back, which he did, called back immediately. I have to begin by saying the only 2 that responded to me was President Kirking and Beth Janice Doyle. And President Kirking asked me to come to the meeting if I wanted to discuss things more. I have to say, Beth responded to me, didn't like her comments, and that's okay, because not everybody's expected to like what they respond. I would have appreciated a response back from others in regards to this, because those that voted for it couldn't even take the time to respond back to the parents. And that is very disappointing as a taxpayer, because we put you in those seats. I don't complain, I don't come to meetings unless there's a reason for it. I was the one that contacted Beth Janice Doyle because she was the one that responded to me questioning this fee and ended up contacting your attorney in regards to this. I am asking for this fee to be removed completely off the account. Don't expect people to pay this fee and then you reallocate it to either the lunchroom or to another fee. Take it off the account. I do billing. I understand the headaches for this. It may not be easy, but if you want the money from people, you charge the people that are participating in this. You don't charge everybody and expect me to pay out the money that my kid is not participating in. I invite you right now to, for those of you that didn't respond, to give me an explanation as to why you didn't respond. Were you told not to respond? Or you just didn't have the time to respond? Because it's been a month. Would anybody like to respond?
Yeah, I apologize for not responding. I got several emails on it. I thought I responded to everybody. Probably just didn't get to your response. Not intentionally, just didn't get to it. I made a couple phone calls to people that had emailed me as well. So just didn't get to it. So I apologize.
I guess I'm curious to know how many each of you guys did actually respond to, how many people you actually did respond to.
There was.
I know you responded.
Let me just, because you
No,
asked
go
the
ahead.
question. In many cases, I think they, rather than, in some cases people ask of like individual responses. I think in other cases they hit the LW 210, so it's kind of a group message. And I'll be bold enough to say in many cases, I reply.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're thinking, okay, well, the voice was back, and then if they wanted an individual, you could always click on an individual's type response rather than playing a 1-on-7. They just say, here's the response. There were several inquiries, and in addition to yours, that discussion not only went into that meeting, continued outside of that meeting, and will lead us to the discussion into this meeting, because it was taken very, very seriously and discussed extensively. Because as I think I replied to you, it was a split vote. It
No, it wasn't a split vote.
For the
It was
fee?
2-4.
Well, I meant it was split, there wasn't a unanimous vote. I
No, no,
apologize.
correct.
I suppose it wasn't split evenly, you're correct. So I'm not defending them, but I'm saying our normal protocol would be, hey, it comes in, I would generally respond, and then if somebody wanted to reply on their own, they're obviously more than welcome, but that's generally how the processes work.
Why this is public comment, I will make a comment. Past practice, since I've been on the board, past boards, it's always been one voice through the president, through Dr. Kingley. Usually individual board members do not respond traditionally.
That's fine, I appreciate that comment, but when he voted against it, and I was looking for the reasons why you thought it was okay to charge people that weren't participating, the only one that responded was Beth Janice Doyle. To me, props to her. Even though she did not say what I wanted to hear, I can accept that, but shame on you guys for not responding. Thank you.
Annette. All right. Next, Rebecca Delson.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Dalseth. Effective August, I will have 2 children at Lakeway West. I was not quiet about this. If any of you are on social media, I'm sure you know my name. And I'm not, if you read anything or just to explain, it's not that I'm against a fee, and I'm not against paying something that my children are utilizing. As a person who's had financial hardships in my life, I felt very, very badly for families that were going to have to pay a fee when they weren't reaping any sort of benefit. So I was kind of rooting for the underdog, I guess. I also was completely disgusted with the fact that that fee was locked onto the Skyward account and that I couldn't do my due diligence and pay my $290 without being forced to pay the $50. I thought that was completely irresponsible of the district to lock the account that way and to basically squish a family into the position to pay something that maybe they might not have been able to pay for at that very moment. I too sent an email on May 25th. I received one response from board member Beth Janice Doyle also. I did not receive any other responses from anyone else. I will tell you that I have been completely disappointed about that also because I probably spent an hour and a half writing that email, making sure I wasn't being disrespectful, making sure I wasn't going to regret something, making sure that I wasn't going to embarrass my children or anything like that, because that was not my intention. My intention was to be heard and to be acknowledged, and I wasn't acknowledged, and that is not okay. I understand if the policy is for one person to respond, but maybe then there should be a blurb on the website that says if you send an email in, you may only get one response, because I did not click Lincoln Way 210 and have an email go. I individually typed in all of your email addresses. So they went out individually, not as they went in as one email, but I typed them all in. I didn't just click one button. So I was pretty surprised that I did not receive any information. And like I said, thank you for stepping up for our kids in our community. Thank you for doing the job, because I certainly wouldn't want to be sitting where you're sitting. No way. But saying that, you need to make choices a little bit better. And I don't think that that was a good choice. And I think that a large portion of the community would agree with that. Just because of what I said. You can't lock the Skyward account. That's completely unacceptable. You can't put a fee into place, weeks after you send out an email saying this is what your fees are going to be this year. And if you have to do it, communicate with us. You still have not even sent out one email to the parents of your students in this district to even explain this. It's been all over social media. You've had the common decency of talking to the news reporters and letting them write stupid things that aren't even accurate about this fee. But you can't even send us, the parents who you're asking money from, an email to explain it? The only people who got an email were the people who already paid the fee, or the people who already paid their registration fee. So if I had jumped online on April 18th, after I registered my kids and automatically paid you $290 times 2, I would have got an email about the fee. But because I didn't pay that, and because I very carefully wrote on my calendar that my fee was due by June 15th, I didn't get an email. That's really, really, really unfortunate. So the only people who get the courtesy are the people who paid, but the people who are waiting for their deadline didn't get anything. The communication is broken, very broken, and it needs to be fixed. That, you know, and I see some of you nodding your heads, and either you think I'm crazy or you're agreeing with me. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to know. But I expect better than this. And $50 is a teeny tiny bit of money to most people. But to the other most people, it might not be. So that's all.
Thank you, Rebecca. And the third person is Elizabeth Burkhart.
Hi. I did not email you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Did not email any of you. I just figured I'd come and talk to you face to face this evening about the same issue, which is the fee. I sort of have a two-pronged statement. I wanted to talk about the fee, and then I have a question at the end, so bear with me. I too would like to have the fee removed completely. I spoke with Mr. Luchetti about this, I don't know, several months ago, about activity fees when you instituted the $10 fee. Many of us have kids in activities, and I've worked with two types of teachers so far. One teacher could account for every penny when I asked for what the amount was going towards, literally down to the penny, and she, in doing so, apologized because she realized that she was maybe overcharging me $5. To which I said, please don't worry about it. And by the way, if you need a donation because you want to do something extra for the kids, let me know. The other teacher made up a bunch of round numbers, and it was many, many days. And I had to stay on him to get the accounting for a much larger fee. These two incidents kind of back to back within a couple of weeks of each other started me, and again, this is many months ago, really looking into activity fees. I spoke with Ms. Luzzo and learned, maybe I'm incorrect, but my understanding after speaking with her is that we do not track activities individually, so I don't know how you can say that any one activity might be in the red and another might be in the black. And so to institute a $10 fee or a flat $50 fee, I don't think is appropriate until you actually know what these activities are costing families. Again, like this other lady, I don't mind paying for my kid to have opportunities, but I do mind, particularly living in the state of Illinois, being constantly taxed and given fee upon fee, and what it appears to many in the community is some kind of creative fees that we're coming up with now to cover financial shortfalls. I do mind paying for those. And I don't also appreciate paying extra fees when our kids are so poorly behind in other areas. They have no technology. I've been trying to do some of my own research and homework, which I do have with me if any of you care to see it after the meeting, as to what other people pay locally and other high schools for registration. All of them include technology. Ours is paper and pencils. So it seems like we're being asked to pay more and more, and we're not getting more and more for our kids. And I do have a problem with that. We are ranked, I believe, according to the ISBE website, 847 out of 852 school districts in the state of Illinois. And now the discussion is coming up as to whether our superintendent is eligible for a raise. I know other administrators have been given raises already. I don't think raises should be given to administrators when we're in such poor financial shape and when you continue to ask for more and more fees. That would be the conclusion to my first part of my statement, and the last is a question for you all. I'm not sure if you're going to want to answer it or not, but I saw that since 2009, according to the auditor's annual reports, Lincoln Way 210 had a $72,436,535 surplus in assets to liabilities. But now the auditors claim the number's fallen by $56,829,904 to a total of $15,606,631. And I was wondering if you could explain how we got to that point.
Go ahead, Mr. Bob.
Yeah. Would you mind repeating back those numbers? I didn't get them the first time, and are you comparing what? So what was the first number? 2009, you said it was what?
Since 2009, this is according to the auditor's annual report, we had a surplus in assets to liabilities of $72,436,535. And now they say that number has fallen by $56,829,904 to a total of $15,606,631.
Right. Okay, so that's going to be made up of several different things. So that's our asset to liability. So back in 2009, I'd have to go back and look to see what it all was. So we're going to have several pieces coming off of that. One is going to be depreciation of buildings, other things non-cash, but the district has ran a deficit for many years. You're probably looking at the kind of what they call the GAAP accounting. If you look more in the what would be the fund accounting, then you can see, we'll look at fund balance, which is an easier number to analyze because it won't have in there our long-term debt and facilities. And so, but, you know, so that number, it's hard for me to give you all the specifics, but I'd be glad if you want to email me, I'll be glad to send you some of the information I've provided the board on our fund balance, which is an easier measure, which is really just what is the district's surplus cash at the end of the fiscal year, if you will. So that's an easier number to distinguish from year to year, how the district's doing on health-wise. So if you want to email me, I'll send you that.
Okay, that would be great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And then if any of you wanted to speak to the fee or the concern over the lack of technology, I'll just go sit. I wanted to speak at the end so I could kind of know what you were going to say, but we don't do that, so I'm just not sure what you're going to cover tonight. But thank you.
Thank you. Next is the budget hearing. So we will now open the hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2018 budget amendment. There's no one scheduled to speak. Is there anyone who would like to comment on the 2018 fiscal year budget amendment? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the budget hearing on the amendment. Motion to close the meeting on the budget amendment.
So moved.
The motion, is there a second? Second. Motion and second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none?
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the curriculum and instruction update. Dr. Perry.
Good evening. So tonight's curriculum and instruction update is going to focus on professional development because although summer is an opportune time for teachers and staff to rest and recharge, it is an excellent opportunity also for professional development. And for the past several weeks, most of our teachers have been participating in the professional development workshops that we've been holding here at Lincoln Way, which is listed in your documents in your packet. So first we offered several different workshops. The first several focused on social emotional emphasis. We had a workshop on mindfulness, teaching strategies for kids with stress and anxiety. We then moved on to intervention emphasis, ways to get students who are struggling intervention help, and for students with struggling in classes. We then focused on technology. We had 4 different dates for technology, all focused on moving forward with Microsoft Office 365, one of which is still coming up in August. This was by far our greatest attended workshops over the summer so far. We also focused on getting teachers ready to teach summer school, and then a workshop devoted to continuing embedding SST into our district, moving forward with that. So if you wanted to look at summer professional development by the numbers, we offered 13 different workshops just here at Lincoln Way. We had 26 different teachers and leaders actually put in the time to plan and present these workshops to their colleagues. So all in all, we offered 21 hours of technology. We offered over 24 hours of social emotional strategies for our teachers. We offered 18 hours of interventions for struggling students. And we had over 30 teachers show up at each of these workshops. So all in all, we had over 630 hours of professional development for our Lincoln Way teachers just this summer. In addition, lots of our course groups get together. So all the world history teachers will get together, and they do curriculum revision and development. So all in all, after all of the course groups got together, over 300 hours of curriculum work were also logged already this summer by our teachers as well. Teachers also take all sorts of opportunities to head to other outside professional development opportunities. We had teachers head out to the Northwestern University College Board workshops, the AP Summer Institute. We even had our anatomy teachers head to the Gross Anatomy for Teacher Education workshop, where they participated in a cadaver lab. So very dedicated teachers doing dedicated things. So moving forward, at the end of the school year, I wanted to see where we should go here from here with professional development. What were interests of the teachers? What were the interests? What were the needs? Where should we go? So overall, on the survey, the results showed that teachers would like more professional development in terms of student motivation and social emotional growth. In terms of instruction, they would love to be able to continue sharing lesson ideas and best practices with each other. In terms of assessment, we're going to continue moving forward with embedding SAT, SAT embedded into our classes and into before and after school prep. With technology, we are continuing to move forward with Office 365. And so for next year, what it looks like. In the morning sessions that we have mapped out throughout the school year, we are going to focus on that instructional strategy teaching, where the teachers will be doing a lot of strategy sharing. Social emotional learning will be the focus of our lunch and learns, as well as motivation, attendance, and SAT. And then we will continue to provide workshops, sessions, and support for moving forward with our Microsoft 365 in our district. So with that, speaking of technology, I'll turn it over to Brian to take it from here.
So I'm not going to go over anything in the world of technology. However, what I'm going to talk about tonight is a little bit of our SAT review and preview. So kind of comparing where we were last year to the most recent results that we had from the spring assessment that we just finished. So looking at last year, this is our class of seniors that have just graduated, and this is the results. The state of Illinois was a 1018, Lincoln Way 210 was an 1108. So the 90-point difference between the state and Lincoln Way. This is the first year that our students here at Lincoln Way took the SAT.
So
not bad results.
Spring of 2017, so 2 springs ago.
So this is the first year, and one of the things that we looked at as we tried to compare is we looked at the math and the English, the evidence-based reading and writing section, and we always said, man, if we could just get those math numbers to be up there with our evidence-based reading and writing, we'd be in really good shape. And that's been a lot of our focus over the last year. So here's just kind of a reminder of how the two tests, the ACT and the SAT, how they compare. Remember, our number was 1108, which is just above the 22 as compared to the ACT. So this chart here is just updated this last spring. ACT and SAT finally got together and really hammered it out and said, you know what, this is pretty good comparison from one test to the next. And this is what they're planning on going with for the unforeseen future. So there's that. So now here we go. These are our most recent results from the test that was just taken this past spring. This is our class of 19. And here are our results. So if we look at the state of Illinois, and what you can see up on the chart here is you see the growth that's occurred from the PSAT, which was taken in the fall, as compared to the SAT, which is taken in the spring. So we look at the state, and the state had a 992 in the fall, and they grew that to a 1012 in the spring in the SAT, a growth of 20 points. Lincoln Way, 1048 to an 1112, a growth of 64 points. That growth is obviously more than 3 times the growth of what the states has experienced. College Board, out of all of their analysis and details that they've been doing over the past 17, 20 years, they would anticipate that the growth from the PSAT to the SAT would be about 48 points. So we've even exceeded that amount of growth. So our students are doing a really great job. One of the other things that it's important to note is that for our PSAT that we took in the fall, 100% of our students took it. Every single junior took the PSAT. As compared to the state, only 68% of the state, the juniors, took the PSAT. So really, at the state level, it's more the students that are really motivated, wanting to try and get ahead, to get an edge on taking that SAT in the spring. Those are the students that take it. Here at Lincoln Way, with the benefit, we get great benefit for our students to be able to take that PSAT, and we've provided that for them. So now, I talked a little bit about how we were pushing the math. But this is the first year in probably 17 years that math has outscored the English side for any type of an assessment like that. So our math department is super proud, super psyched right now that they really worked hard to get that number up to where we're beating out the English side. One thing that we have heard through the grapevines is that evidence-based reading and writing portion of the SAT was much more difficult this year. Pretty much any student that we've talked to said it was really hard. It's a really hard test. And you'll see, as I dig more and more into it, we'll see more of the results. From there, the results that we got, I took a little quick look at the SAT, and I broke it down into our quartiles. It's important to look at our quartiles so we can identify those students really where we need to continue to push them. So what we saw as we compared the SAT to the SAT is that we are continuing to push all of our quartiles over to the right more. They're all growing. The minimum growth was about 50 points on average from the 620 to the 670. And we're seeing a lot more growth at the higher ends. So what we're going to continue to do is kind of focus on those lower 2 quartiles and help push them along so that we can get them to experience a little bit more success when they go to taking the SAT. So discussion points. One thing that we're really proud of is that we are producing consistent results. Our students are doing consistent results from year to year. We're right around the same plane. An 1108 to an 1112, we had a growth of 4 overall from year to year as compared an apple to an orange with 2 different classes. Our math curriculum this past year really focused on embedding test prep questions in their daily lessons, in their review packets, and on their assessments. All of our curricular areas continue to prepare students for both the ACT and the SAT, whether they're doing an in-class review, they're doing before school and after school prep sessions, we're doing practice tests over the weekend. So we're really providing a lot of proper opportunities for our students to take the ACT and the SAT. The future of the state assessment. So this is an exciting time. The state of Illinois finally came out on Monday and declared that they were going to enter into an agreement with SAT for 3 years and provide all 9th, 10th, and 11th graders with a spring assessment. So what that means is that in the spring, our 9th graders will take the PSAT 9, our sophomores will take the PSAT 10, and our juniors will take the SAT, all conducted in the spring. And that's going to be the state assessment for that year. In the past, we provided those same 3 tests in the fall for our students, for the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. Moving forward, we will continue to provide the PSAT for our juniors, which is the PSAT and MSPT, which is the test that really helps qualify our students for the National Merit Scholarship. So that's really important for our juniors to kind of take that and hopefully get recognized. We'll continue to provide that in our fall. Our next steps as we move forward I talked a little bit about it, is we're going to continue to identify those students that performed in the third and the fourth quartiles and really help to focus in on preparing them for the SATs moving forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions?
This is the first year of the juniors, this is the 3 years of our math, correct?
This is our juniors that just took the SAT were the first of all 3 years, correct?
All right, just a quick question. Do all juniors in the state of Illinois take the SAT?
This past year, it was the state mandated test, yes.
So, but I mean, do every student who is a junior have to take it?
This past year, absolutely.
Like
Graduation.
Okay.
It is correct, yes.
Then will we still offer the SAT to the freshmen and sophomores in the fall?
At this time, we will not. We're going to switch their assessment into the spring, and then that will give us a better study, be able to monitor their growth from year to year to year. Because that's the model that the state is moving to. They're moving to more of a growth model, so they want to be able to track how a freshman does when he's a sophomore and a junior.
Any other questions?
Brian, how many technology cards have we added in the last 2 years?
Sure. This past year, we started the year with only 7 carts. Throughout the year, we've added another 14 carts. Each cart has 32 laptops on it. They're distributed evenly amongst all 3 of our buildings. So as it stands today, there are 7 carts in each building. We are growing that number over the summer to have an additional 21 carts through the district. So there will be 14 carts in each building that our teachers will be utilizing in a one-to-one environment. So, and again, each cart has 32 laptops on them, and students will utilize them on a daily basis. 42 teachers overall.
Isn't the foundation provided some of theirs?
Correct. They have a number of those cards. And Brian and Cheryl will share the technology plan at an August board meeting. That's one of the things that's on our goals. So we was ready for this meeting, but with 20 action items, we bumped it to August.
Smart decision.
Yes.
Okay, thanks again, Brian and Amy. All right, next is our consent agenda. On the consent agenda this evening is the approval of the regular minutes of the May 17, 2018 meeting, approval of the closed meeting minutes of May 17, 2018, approval of the payrolls from May 18, 2018, June 5, 2018, June 20, 2018, and out-of-state travel. Does anyone wish to have any of those pulled and discussed separately? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
For public participation. All right, any additional discussion? Hearing none, vote please.
Vote is open. The motion is unanimous.
The next agenda item is the fiscal year 2018 budget amendment. Brief overview of this.
Yes. All right, so before you tonight is the proposed or tentative budget amendment that's been on display for the last 30 days to meet state law. And of course, we just had the hearing, and the reason for the amendment is several items. The first would be after the adoption of the budget, we had just finished the audit. Once a year, we get from the state what our on-behalf TRS payments will be. And it really fluctuates depending on what the state decides they're going to pay towards their portion of TRS. In prior years, it had been lower, around the 24 million. Well, in this last year, it was 34 million. So we had already adopted the budget, already had things set. We had set it lower. Since we were in the process of amending, we went ahead and increased our TRS on behalf. Now, this is just a book entry for the district. It has no effect on our cash balance, has no effect on anything. It's just us recording what is, down there they're paying on behalf of our teachers into the state retirement system. So we moved that up to 36 million from 24 to just be in line with where we think the state's going to be, because that was an area we were off on our budget. Then that's on page 2. Going to page 4 would be the next change we would have in the budget. And really what this is, as you know, during the year, we had to go ahead and do some additional inter-fund loans. And so we'll go ahead to pay those inter-fund loans back. We just wanted to clean up and have the budget match up with what we actually had needed to do. We hadn't anticipated having to do that additional loan. So we've added those. Finally then, going to page 5, this is really, page 5 is kind of a hook, if you will, to the expenditures related to IMRF. During the process, it became obvious in the last few months that we were going to be about $30,000 over in Fund 50, and we cannot overexpend in any one fund. And tax collection, as you know, is very strong, so we're adding $50,000 to each one of our anticipated tax lines, which then, if you go over to page 15, that's where we've then added an additional expenditure in Fund 50, which is IMRF and Social Security, and which we were going to, if we didn't amend the budget, would be about $34,000 over budget on a $2.6 million fund. So apologize for cutting that so tight, but that was really the need. Then, as long as we were talking about this, we had another item we wanted to go ahead and bring forward. It wasn't part of the discussion back when the original budget was adopted, and that was the district's consideration of the IMRF early retirement incentive that we have balanced. So this was back from 2010. A group of employees were allowed to retire into this option, and it created a liability for the district. That liability has been amortized over 10 years, but it's amortized over 10 years based on what IMRF sees that your rate should be based on your estimated payrolls. And so it may or may not be exactly paid off within the 10 years. Ours has been dragging out there. So this is from 2010, we're already in 2018, and we still have a sizable balance on this thing. So what we have proposed is we went ahead and built into this amended budget an opportunity to go ahead and pay that off. So that would be on page 15, or 16, I apologize, 16, and that would be payments to other governmental agencies. And this would be to pay off that IMRF ERI. We can talk about that more later when we get to that actual resolution, but the bottom line is they're charging us 7.5% interest, and our borrowing is substantially below that, so it makes sense that we should consider this. And so we put it in the budget. Doesn't mean we have to do it, but we've got it in there in case later in the meeting we decide to do that. So with that, that's everything there is to do with the amendment.
Before I entertain the motion, any questions of Brett?
What was causing the increased expenditures in the IMRF?
It's really just, it's a normal expenditure increase from the amount of the salaries and whatever. I just, in calculating it out, just cut it too tight. Moving forward, probably in our next budget, I probably will recommend that we have small contingency. Not that we ever expect to use it, but would, in case if I did calculate things a little too tight, would allow us to not have to go through the budget amending process. So that one thing we can discuss when we start to look at the 2019. But nothing extraordinary in IMRF or FICA has changed. The rates, the rates go up every year. Rates went up about what we expected, just that salaries were slightly a little more, and I just had cut it pretty darn tight, and so we ended up being about $34,000 over budget on $2.6 million.
So what was highlighted was pupil transportation services?
Right. So, and just for simplicity, the state law is we can't overexpend in any one item. So we went through, looked at the different things. This was the one that we felt we just go ahead and increase. We could have went through and I could have put a little bit on every one. This is one that is, so we just went ahead and put it there. So.
early retirement incentive, what was the original amount of that in 2000?
I don't have that. I can get that.
And then, are there any other kind of quasi-loans out there at this rate that we're currently?
No, so, well, the only other things the district would have, obviously other than bonds and that kind of thing, would be, we have a small operating lease on some technology that is coming to an end. And then we have our ongoing operating lease on our buses, and that rate's very reasonable. And then really, that's it. There's nothing like this in TRS. So this is the only thing that would have it as IMRF.
I guess it's kind of, so the interest on this, where was that flowing through on the budget? The interest on this?
So the interest on this IMRF ERI is just factored into our rate, and so it just gets spread across all of salaries. So they don't charge you a specific, like, okay, here's the interest on the stuff. They just capitalize it back to the amount that you owe, and then they just readjust your rate to what they think you're going to be able to get things paid off. And so then that rate then is charged off to every one of our individual salary line items. So it's really embedded in the total cost of the IMRF.
So we've checked the rest of the budget for anything outside that, the threshold that we would legally have to change it.
Right, yep. We're looking good. On the rest of the budget, looks like we're going to be fine. We're going to be under, so we're good.
Any other questions?
You have in here, it saves the district approximately $39,000 annually for 2 more years?
No. This would be, the 39,000 is not hard to quantify. That's the current balance less the difference between the 7.5 and our estimated TWA, TAWs. At that point, we're looking at like 2.95. Just calculated out the difference. That's easy to do. What's unknown is I can't tell you how many years it would have taken us to pay off this IMRF. They just continue to look at your rate, look at what they think your salaries are going to be, and reassign you a new rate. It's obviously, we were supposed to have this thing done in 10, we've already been paying in 8, and we still have a sizable balance. So.
All right, if not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2018-10, amending the budget for fiscal year 2018 as presented in the package. Is there a motion? There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, vote please.
Shelley second. The vote is closed. The motion is unanimous.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund early retirement incentive payment that we just discussed.
All right, well, we've kind of already jumped into this. Really not much more to say other than I think it's financially prudent for the district to go ahead and to go ahead and make this payoff and to go ahead and save the additional interest expense. It will have, of course, an impact on our tax anticipation warrants. We will be needing to borrow that $576,000 more, but that's just for a shorter window of period. That we have those TAWs outstanding, and it's at a substantially reduced rate.
Just to make sure I understand the time. Right.
No, go ahead.
So this will be done in this fiscal year?
That is correct.
And the TAW then repayment of the warrants that have been drawn to cover the cash shortfalls for this year, just the $600,000 would be paid before we re-up next year?
Yeah, so where we're at with the TAWs right now is we're actually into our cash high point. So we're in the process of paying those off.
Right.
We will have those all paid off by, I believe, September. September. And so, what it's going to do is it's going to lower our cash balance. And so then moving forward, coming into the fall, if we didn't pay this off, then we would be,
You know, look at the 2019 cash flow, we'd be $500,000 higher. So when you look at that cash flow, it's, might as well discuss this too. I know it's getting into all these kind of mixed together. So, you know, if you look at our individual funds, you know, we try not to maintain too high a balance in any of our restricted funds, if you will. So that's like IMRF, TORT, you know, transportation, any of that. So ed fund or working cash is where you should maintain your appropriate fund balance. O&M you can maintain, you know, depending on what projects you have coming. That really should be in capital. Well, so because the IMRF fund balance was actually a little high, I had wanted to make sure we didn't have any tax objections, so I actually under-levied a little to start to bring that down. Well, that was previous, and as you know, it takes 18 months for a tax levy to really go from passing to collection and being done. So you're going to see in the 2019 cash flow that actually we're going to be pretty tight. Now, if we do go ahead and pay this off, we're actually going to pull down that cash, and we're going to be tight in that fund. We'll have to do a little small loan to it, which is perfectly legal from the ed fund, but then by the end, the taxes will roll in and we'll be fine. And so it's going to be a good, if we do it, it'll be a nice thing, and we'll go ahead and pull down that balance and bring it more into line, but it's going to put a little cash crunch on us for just a little bit in 2019.
So we're paying this from accumulated funds, but that's assuming that tax revenue is coming in this month, correct? Because the May balances, I don't think were enough to pay it.
No, this fund, well, at the end of the year, this fund had, so it's two different, so cash flow versus fund balance. Fund balance, you know, the ending day, this fund had 900,000. That's a substantial balance. Cash flow wise, in order to make it through its high and low points, 900,000 was plenty for it to make it through, which you would think, okay, you know, shouldn't. Anyway, long and short, now if we drop it down to 400,000, that's not quite going to be enough to make it through its actual cycle, so we'll have to just do a small loan in there. But, so.
But in doing so, that saves us the 39,000 a year
Yes.
you're talking about?
Yes.
For 1 year, right?
For 1 year. That's ongoing until it would have been paid off.
So I see cash balance as a 531. Because this is what I was asking, a 458,000 in Fund 50. So you're taking, there's going to be a tax payment coming in.
Right.
That's going to cover the rest of this.
Exactly.
You're saying
Yes.
it's coming from accumulated funds.
I see your question now. Yes. The tax payment that came in today is going to store that fund up enough. We'll be able to make the payment out of that fund and we'll be fine rolling in. But then when you know, mid-year, we'll get low in that fund.
I mean, this has been outstanding since 2010. The question is, why haven't we, you know, considered paying it any earlier?
We've run deficits every year. So with deficits every year, we've been paying on it, but now we're in a position with our surplus. This is where Brad and Kelly brought forward with this would be a prudent time to at least bring this to the board.
You keep talking about drawing additional warrants throughout the 18-19 year. How confident are you we will have access to said warrants?
Oh, I think we'll be absolutely, well, first off, and I know now we're kind of jumping into 2019 cash flow, but our 2019 cash flow, we're estimating we'll need about 19 million in TAWs. We've already met with Old Second, assuming that's where is our best options. They've assured us that 20 plus is not, you know, like 23 is not a problem. So if you look at where we ended this year at 24 million. We think we'll probably make it through 19 at probably that 19 million. So that's a 5 million into the good, maybe even a little better. So the district's in the right way, and Old Second is pleased with our progress that we've made financially. They're definitely all in, no problem.
Talking about additional borrowings.
Can you speak up, please?
we're talking about additional borrowings, just want to make sure we have access to those borrowings.
Right. And when I say additional, I mean additional above what we would have to if we didn't do this. It's going to be lower than in prior years, but
The difference between the 7.5% versus what we're going to borrow against, plus jumping ahead to where I think the surplus is going to be this year, I mean, I think it makes sense to pay this.
Just one, has the interest rate on this typically been around 7.5% in the last several years, or give or take?
you know, I don't know. I would suspect it's probably been, you know, because TRS has been kind of at that rate too on different things that they charge off for.
But we would expect they'd flow the same way, meaning if our cost of the TAWs increase, whatever those increase, it's probably safe to assume that the rate on this is going to increase.
Right.
Well, so there's going to be a margin of savings there.
Right.
Might not be quite as great as it is now, but we can assume that the margin in the coming years.
I would think that's a safe assumption of what surprised me seeing change it in the future.
I mean, if you discount this back and just assume 7.5%, I mean, this was a much lower number in 2010, obviously. We're not doing any more of the early retirement incentives or any.
This is all from 2010. There have been none since then through IMRA. This is where that bulk of the 576 was in the 2010 pool of retirees.
How many retirees do we have?
Because it's amortized over the life of their retirement.
Right.
Any other questions?
Well, just, you said it's a 10-year, I mean, what happens after 2020 if you didn't pay it?
You know, honestly, I've not researched that. I'm assuming that they would come to you and say, well, your payrolls weren't what we estimated, so we're going to amortize it some more for you. Or I guess ultimately they could say, pay.
But at 7.5% interest, they may.
I'm sure,
it out.
yeah, at 7.5, I don't think they mind collecting the 7.5. I think it's better than their internal investments. So.
Anything else?
I don't know if we want to get to the end of the loan.
Finance or just?
No, I'm just roll the dice and see what happens.
All right. Now, I'll entertain a motion to make the early retirement incentive payment as described in the report back. So, the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote, please.
Vote is open. I'm sorry, it's not open?
No.
I'll call the vote. Mr. Lucetti?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mr. Janet?
Aye.
Mr. Costa?
Aye.
Mr. Kirby?
Aye. All right, thank you. Next, presentation of invoices for May 2018. Entertain a motion for the presentation of invoices.
Motion to approve the invoice in the amount of $1,775,928.82 dated June 21st, 2018.
Any motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion regarding the invoices? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. What was the boiler invoice at East this month? I would guess that would just be for general maintenance, upkeep, and repair, which is not here this evening. But we have routine service on the pipes, for the tubes.
The laptops and desktops that's listed in here, was that the technology that Dr. Murphy was talking about earlier?
Part of it.
It's part of it, yes.
Any other questions regarding the invoices? Now we have a motion and a second, call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Thank you. Next is the treasurer's report for May 2018. I'll entertain a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented in your package.
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second? Second. Motion and second. Discussion.
Okay, thank you. So as you can see here from my memo, we are in the tax collection season. So we had a very strong tax collection in May. So we had total revenues of just over 14 million. The district expended just over 6, bringing our total cash balance to 14.8 million. However, this does include 20.1 million of TAWs, leaving us a negative cash balance of 5.2 million overall, which when you're accounting for outstanding warrants and loans. The district did already begin paying back the 2007 tax anticipation warrants. We paid 3.9 million in May. We've already paid, we're making our second payment in the morning for June, so we'll have 3 payments made by the end of this fiscal year. Already we're down to, at that point, we're down to 20.1 million outstanding. As you can see, based on, it's going to be exciting as we go into 19. I have a second year in the district. So you can see we tighten up my projections. However, tax collections was stronger because of this, payment. People wanted to pay to make sure it's tax deductible. But anyway, you can see we had on the cash flow, $3.5 million variance. We collected 14. I thought we'd only have 10.6 million. Expenditures though, right in there, that's easier to predict. So we had predicted we'd have 6.8 in expenditures. We actually had 6.4 or $447,000 variance. So overall everything is going quite well. We're really coming into June strong. I put in your packet what I would project to be our financial end of the year. And we did get just today, we got our second tax payment in June. And I will tell you that this report, this financial report, all funds is already obsolete and outdated because the tax collection came in substantially stronger than thought. So we ended up collecting a good chunk of revenue. So with that being said, tax collection year to date is up about 1.3 million more than we thought. That's a real positive thing for cash flow. Of course, it's because we are on a cash basis accounting, unless that strong collection continues, it really will just come off of next year's amount. So we'll have to, when we go through the 19 budget, we're going to have to balance that, determine on what percentage we think we will or won't collect of the 18 levy to balance that out. So it's a positive and negative all in one shot. So with that, I just opened up for questions.
Any questions of Brett?
So where are you projecting our surplus to be this year?
We're still in rough numbers because we're still, in the process of collecting fees and revenue and the process of still paying bills. My best guess at this point, I think that we will exceed our revenue budget by about $4 million. And I think we will underspend our original budget by, maybe $500,000 or more, depending on how the last of the bills come in. But we will be under budget on all of the funds. The only one we were going to be not close, but over would have been IMRF, but we amended the budget. But when you look at the original budget, we'll be underspent on that. So, we're going to be, I say we're going to be in that, $7 million over range.
So the surplus would be 7 million?
Or, right, I think that's a ballpark. Like I said, we're still, going through the books, but we are winding down. We're truing up transportation, claim, blah, blah. We've got a few moving parts left, but we're getting down to it.
So that 1.3 million, you said that was what just in June, you collected 1.3 million more than you were
Right.
expecting here. So, that's really going to come off probably July.
Right, so what's going to happen, that's what I said, the tax receipts, a positive and negative, all in one whammo, because there's only so much taxes we're gonna collect. When we collect more than the normal percentage in this fiscal year, it's coming off next. And so unless that trend happened the same with the 18 taxes, we will be, needing to adjust what we think we're gonna get on the 19. So surplus is higher than expected in 18. Well, we're gonna struggle to have the expected surplus in 19 because $1.3 million additional revenue just popped in when we weren't expecting it.
You're attributing the higher collection of taxes to people prepaying, so they're tax deductible. So that'll be obviously the one-time.
Right. People were concerned, they got in, they paid, and so it pushed the collection up.
Just to clarify, you're talking the operating surplus, 7 million, correct?
Correct.
And are you including the extra 500,000 we just approved? 500?
No, if we go ahead, now that's $500,000 off, so
Yeah.
we could be south of 7 million if we go ahead with that being approved, yes. So, but it's going to be very,
It is
We already approved.
well, sorry, it's already approved, right, right.
So 6.5.
Any other questions of Brad? Now we have a motion and a second. Open it for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Next, our student activities report for May 2018. Entertain a motion to accept the student activities report as presented in your package.
So moved.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
Included in your backup materials is the student activity report. As you can see, there are 4 different clubs or sports that were a little bit under. Those will all be cleared up by June 30th, and all accounts will be in positive by the close of the fiscal year, June 30th.
Any questions regarding this report? Now we have a motion and a second. Call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Next are the personnel reports and employment.
Under employment, we have Lindsay O'Farrell, Reading Department Chair, Lincoln Way Central. Katie Streck, Social Worker, Lincoln Way East High School. Katrina Cimaroli, Reading Teacher, Lincoln Way Central. Dana Brown, Special Services Teacher, Lincoln Way West. Bree Granada, Special Services Teacher, Lincoln Way West. Sean Fahey, Head Girls Soccer Coach, Lincoln Way Central. Allison Murphy, Dean, Lincoln Way Central. Brian Gibson, Special Services Teacher, Lincoln Way East. Matt Lawrence, Dean, Lincoln Way West. And Dan Zableski, Dean, Lincoln Way West. I ask the board to approve this employment report as presented.
I entertain a motion to approve the employment report as presented.
So moved.
A motion, is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion or questions for Rob? Hearing none, call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Rob, next.
Under retirements, Chester Smirla was put into retirement effective May 29, 2018. I ask the board to approve this for retirement as presented.
Entertain a motion to approve the retirement report as presented. There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, under resignations and leaves, under resignations, Catherine Solkowski, teacher and department chair of Lincoln Way Central, has resigned effective 5/29/2018. Jennifer Winnetka, teacher and dean at Lincoln Way West High School, has resigned effective 5/29/2018. And leaves, Amanda Trazer is asked to take a leave for the parental leave for the 2018-2019 school year. I ask the board to approve these personnel recommendations.
there a motion to approve the resignation of leaves as presented?
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the item to appoint the district treasurer. I'll entertain a motion to approve Brad Kaufman for the position of district treasurer effective July 1st, 2018. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Thank you. Next is on the agenda is the treasury surety bond. Entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2018-11 regarding the Lincoln Way Community High School treasurer surety bond. Is there a motion to accept the bond as presented in your package?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Brad, I'll just ask the silly question. Can you describe for us what the treasurer surety bond is?
Well, I'll do my best. Okay, so first off, state law requires that the district treasurer be bonded up to 25% of the maximum, if you will, liquid cash. In case of a theft or misappropriation of funds, then the district would have assurance, if you will, back against the company, which is this Liberty Mutual, and able to be able to file for a claim if, say, funds were missing. It's interesting enough, while I'm the named treasurer, if we actually had a claim out, let's say, in one of our buildings, we had something go wrong, we could actually we could file a claim. Just because I'm the named treasurer, it covers the entire district with cash and liability. So if we had actual cash missing, we could file a claim against it, whether it would settle in our favor or not, you know. But that's in essence what it is. So you know, the treasurer's bond in the last year in our comment, our audit was we only had $7 million, which was not the required 25%. We've estimated our actual maximum cash would be about $29 million, so we're raising it to $9 million to make sure we have coverage for that.
So we're covered up to 36 million.
Yeah, but
Right, you're projecting 29, so we have
Correct.
plenty.
Any other questions? Now we have a motion and a second. I'll call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Next agenda item is the resolution for designation of depositories. I'll entertain a motion to accept the resolution of designation of depositories as presented in your package.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Are these,
these are who we're currently, right? So this is just complying with Board Policy 430, which just says that annually the Board of Education will set where we're going to have funds. And so this is no change from prior year. In fact, that we're narrowing the field, if you will. So there's, you know, like Old Plank's not on there and some others we weren't really using much anyway. So those have been consolidated down.
If you wanted to use another depository, you could just come back to the board.
Right. If there was a need, we would come back and talk to you. But you know, you can see here we have, you know, quite of options. You know, with really Illinois funds, PMA, and Old Second. That's really where 99% of everything happens.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. Call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Next is the Prevailing Wage Act Resolution. I would entertain a motion to accept the Prevailing Wage Act Resolution as presented in your package.
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion or questions regarding this resolution? Anyone?
So we're just going to allow the Department of Labor to set the rate then, as we typically do?
Correct. We've not yet received the chart, so obviously when we do it, it would be enacted.
Any others? Now we have a motion and a second, call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Next agenda item are the goals for the 2018-2019 school year. Entertain a motion to accept the goals as they're presented in your package. So moved. There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
Just real quick, I want to thank the board members for their input as we put these together. Now, these are different than the 5-year strategic plan, yet again, there are some similarities that are intertwined. These are items that we anticipate completing by June of 2019. Obviously, with our 5-year, we are making significant progress, but not everything will be completed at the annual review this year in December. But curriculum instruction, finance, the technology is embedded in here, as well as community relations, some of the goals for the upcoming school year.
We have a motion and a second, any additional discussion or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Next item is the student athletic and activity fees for the 2018-2019 school year. Maybe encourage a discussion before we went to a motion. So why don't we talk a little bit about what happened?
So we received several calls and emails, obviously, as we've heard from parents. You know, in discussions with those parents, different individuals, that we could potentially be challenged on the charging of fees. It would be my recommendation at this time to, if the board still wishes to enact a fee, to change that to $50 per student for any fee or activity. As you can see in the memo that's been posted publicly, we've got, you know, John Izzo's opinion in there that it's been challenged. It could be challenged. It has in here different options that we would do to apply the $50 fee to their cafeteria account, apply $50 credit for future use, or receive a $50 refund for those families who have paid it and their child did not participate. We have the exceptions in there, which would be the special education non-participants, free and reduced from the September report, and any hardship cases will be reviewed per state law. So there would be some estimated diminished revenue, but I think this would be a prudent move moving forward.
Board, any comments?
So is Mr. Izzo's opinion that it's illegal for us to do this, or that he says the potential
Could be challenged.
could be challenged, so it's not necessarily illegal?
Didn't use those terms. As you can see, the charging of fees has been challenged several times. He believes it could be challenged.
Any other questions or comments regarding this? Everybody?
I'm obviously in favor of this because I wasn't in favor of charging people who weren't participating, so I definitely think it should be removed.
Thank you.
As far as the 3 choices for the refund, we have to decide how we're going to do it, or the parents that paid it, they can choose any of those?
They can choose any of those.
Gotcha, okay.
So an email.
They can have a refund or?
Absolutely. Email would
It's
go
their
out.
choice.
Here
We're
are
not
3
saying they have.
options, and they could call.
Gotcha.
They could call the financial secretary and say, I want $25 sent back, I want $25 towards my cafeteria account. We'll work with them on that.
Can it be removed?
So are we going,
Yes.
would the idea be that the fee would only be charged once they participate in an activity going forward?
Well, no, they would have the option, because right now it is an option for them to click. So if you're paying registration, you want to go ahead and pay it, you click on it, you know your kid's going to participate, you're good. If you choose not to pay, then you'll be assessed once your child does participate. And that email is ready to go out tomorrow to those parents who have not yet registered. So we have 2 different emails ready. One of those who have paid to give the option of just leave it on there, my kid's going to participate, or here's how you get it back. Second email, you have yet to register. If your child participates, you can pay that fee now, or you'll be assessed once your child participates.
And if someone goes into the system to pay fees, is it clear that would it be clear that the participant would be a participation fee and only needs to be paid if they're going to be participating?
No, right now it's not clear.
Nope.
What's the verb say?
Right now, they can choose to not pay
Pay
it
or
by
not
not
pay.
checking the box. It is open for that. I'll add the verbiage to make sure that it includes statements saying that this participation fee, if your child is going to pay. Then it'll appear on the family access as that. So I'll make that verbiage as part of that fee.
So if you don't know if your child is going to participate in a sport or an activity, once you do, it's coded somehow in Skyward so that that fee is assessed onto you? Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
As it should.
So if your kid participates, do you pay a $50 fee and then you're going to get another fee to actually do that activity? So you're actually charged twice, or is this
One
just
time.
so no extra fees on top of the $50?
$50.
That's it.
$50 gets you in the parking, right?
That's not
That's
right.
not what we're being told in other areas. That's why I'm trying to clarify.
Okay, no, that's what the board has agreed to.
Well, we haven't agreed to
No, the
anything.
board hasn't agreed. The proposal is $50. That's the charge for clubs, sports, and activities.
Maybe Dr. Murphy, as you're rewriting that to make it clearer, maybe that could be included in there so there's no question for those who haven't attended tonight.
I know we're not supposed to be talking like this, but just to be clear, I have a child who plays tennis, who was at tennis for the last 2 weeks. And I was told that there was a whole new system in place and that we were no longer writing a check to pay for uniforms and all that stuff, and that there's a website that we will go to that we will be placing the uniforms. So to say that the $50 fee is all that we will be paying is not correct. Because I will be going on a website and I will be buying a uniform for my child. And that is not included in the $50 fee. And I was also told that the website that was selected was a website that strictly sold Nike brand uniforms, and that our uniforms could double in price from what we paid the last 2 years. And we were trying to negotiate kind of splitting the difference, like get a Nike top, but get a cheaper bottom, get a Nike bottom, get a cheap top, so that our $90 fee that we've paid the last 2 years isn't going to be $200 this year to wear a uniform, plus the $50. So just so that you know, that's not what's happening, okay? And I'm okay with paying $50 for my child to be in whatever the heck she wants to be in, and then to buy the uniform. But I want you to know that we have to buy the uniform. That is not in the $50. So please don't think that it is, unless I was told incorrectly.
Yep. I wasn't at tennis camp, so I can't speak to that.
Okay.
I can tell you that we are going to work closely with our athletic directors so that there's consistency throughout our district in terms of every sport, in terms of what families are being charged, what's being paid, what is being paid for by the district, and what's being paid for by the parent. And that was one of the motivations in moving into this agreement, is to get better pricing and to get better options and to develop that consistency throughout the district. We shouldn't have students at one school paying $200 for their supplies for girls softball and at another school paying $75. It needs to be consistent. Now, I can't speak to what's being paid in the past for tennis or what's planned to be paid. I'll tell you, the price is not going to double by us going to this agreement. That's simply not going to happen. But that's something that all coaches and ADs, we will be working through this process. You know, the $50 is an overhead cost. You know, we pay for coaches, we pay for transportation, we pay for the operations of these facilities. We want consistency amongst the user fees in the sports, because I agree with you.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the tennis kids, they want to buy their tennis stuff, they want to keep it.
Right.
Girls softball, they want to buy their own pants. They don't want to wear pants that somebody else is wearing. I completely understand. You know, boys baseball, they all wear white pants now. They want to buy a new pair for the season. So we're going to develop consistency amongst programs amongst the district.
I would add into that fundraising. I think there should be more clarity around whether the funds are going for the sports that are doing fundraising.
And that's already happened, Chris. And we're going to get breakdowns of that next year, or they're not doing any fundraising. We received that this past year, and we're pushing that even harder to control some of it. I agree with you.
So I already, in another note, received notification of what I was supposed to be paying for madrigals, for example. So do I not pay that now because I'm paying, I'm just trying to get clarity to know what am I supposed to be paying? Because I don't know that everybody, even within the different activities, understands what's going on.
Madrigals won't have changed.
So it's not a flat $50 fee, because I'll be paying a madrigal fee and a $50 fee to the district.
Correct.
So what does the $50 fee cover?
Participation rate.
Once again, there are incurred costs with every sport and activity we do. With madrigals, the cost of what the students pay to participate does not cover the labor of our cafeteria staff, does not cover our auditorium staff. There are still costs.
It actually
incurred.
does, because I work in the kitchen, but that's another thing. But
Okay. Well, we're
I'm
going
just-
to get back focused on
Yeah.
the proposal.
It's-
Because now we're in the madrigals and tennis. And
you don't know what the things cost.
Right.
That's my point.
Well, and again, but we know they cost, and we understand that. And so last year we had the very segmented, where we're trying to break down activities, sports. This year the proposal was to, well, as it is now, is to charge a flat $50 for those that would participate in an extracurricular activity as listed. There was a list of them, was also part of the package. So
Well, I was told in a booster meeting that the goal of madrigals is the ticket sales pay for the program. So
I
now
understand
I'm
it goes
just,
inside out, backwards and forwards. They got, did that for 8 years.
but now I have to pay 2 fees.
But it
That's
doesn't
my
always,
point.
the school district doesn't break down right now, and
I know.
never has to this point, but we're actively pushing in that direction, a cost accounting per function basis.
I understand.
So,
That's
but
why
we're
I
not
want
there
to
now,
pay
so
2 fees.
we can't stop and not do anything while we wait for that process to be put in place. Is madrigals accretive? I don't know. It depends on how many people attend, what the ticket charge is, what the cost is for the food, all the other things associated with that. So those are individual things that we have to lead to administration to discuss with the individuals that run those programs. But tonight, we're going to entertain, if you can get a motion in a second, to look at charging a $50 activity fee to those that are participating in activities. It's a fee that they would have to activate as part of the registration process, or later in the year, if they choose an activity that's a spring or later in the year activity.
Just to clarify, it is showing on the bills. You have the option to pay it, but I'm still showing a balance due.
Understood.
So, just so you guys
That
understand.
That's part of what we're trying to unwind. We absolutely heard, in addition to the other information.
Okay, I'm just one more
Sure,
interruption, and I apologize. I
That's
won't do it
okay, don't
anymore.
apologize.
In speaking to my concern before about the lack of communication, I'm not going to give you a deadline because you're adults and that's not my place anyway. But I would like to request respectfully correspondence to all of the families about this fee. I don't want people to find out about it logging on to Skyward. I don't want people to find out about it from Facebook. You owe that to all of these families, communication and maybe even an apology.
Rebecca, you made that note, I wrote it
Okay.
down, I started
Okay.
right there. So we will
So,
have to.
I mean,
after this-
no
No, I
disrespect, but
understand. And no
I'm
disrespect back.
insulted,
We're
you know?
listening. We're listening. This
Okay.
was, perfection is
Yeah.
an objective, not necessarily
Right.
attained.
Right.
So, direction was given, there was a vote. Some voted for, some did not. We're back here to talk about it again. And so now, I would entertain a motion that the proposal is presented in the package.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
It's a long memo. Can we read out exactly what the motion is? I'm sorry, just so long.
Well, I mean, what, you want me to read it to you?
No, I mean, the motion is,
It's a $50 fee if you
It's a $50 fee once you participate, once your child chooses to participate in one of the defined, in that sub-list, activities associated with the school.
One-time fee.
One-time fee. So if they do a spring, winter, fall, or, fall, winter, spring, it's $50. If they do a spring, it's $50. If they do a fall, it's $50.
I'll make sure.
No, I understand. I wasn't sure what I wanted
I was
to
trying to
read.
be, not trying to be facetious, no. Second.
There's a motion and there's a second. Is there any additional discussion? Chris, Aaron? Anything? If not, there's a motion and a second. I'll call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you for all your information. Next, facility rental policy and rates.
Brad's worked on this.
All right, so in accordance with policy 820, annually the district board will approve the rental rates. Just to kind of give you an idea, we'll collect about $360,000 in rental fees to outside organizations. In reviewing the process and trying to bring some uniformity across the district, we felt like there were several things that we needed to do, which we're bringing here tonight. So first thing was to redefine the organizational categories. And so you see there, we've added an additional, so we've got them broken out. We have actually 6. I don't know if the 6th one just to deal with the class of the tutors. So we've done that. Then we've added additional technology charges for our stage tech people, lighting, etc. And then the aquatic rental rates. I want to emphasize this is probably the area of the biggest change. Pools are very expensive to operate and maintain. We felt like in order to recover our costs, that they needed to be more in line with our field house rental rates, so we've aligned those. We've adjusted salaries and that thing for how salaries have increased over the years. And then there was some policy changes needed, so we placed them there for you to look. I can just really highlight them quickly. If you look at policy 7.330, the only thing we needed to clarify there was that this is really saying that students would not be charged and be granted free access. Well, we want to make sure we clarified that because, like, for example, Girl Scouts wants to come in and use our facilities. Well, that's not a student-led group, not what this policy means. This policy means, a group of students get together and they want to form a club or an organization. We're going to allow that. We might even have a sponsor assigned. We're not going to charge them, but the Girl Scouts want to use our facilities. There'd be a rental rate for that. Okay, so that's the change there. Add in there which organizations organized and led by students. Then finally, if you go to the policy 8.20, we need to go ahead and just clarify there that we're really going to be going off the defined charts and then the defined rental as per the table. So just clarifying that. That way the policy can stay from year to year and we know we're going to be referring to our tables to make those rental fees, contracts. So with that, I would really just open it up for questions. And yeah.
Are there any questions of Brad regarding the rental policy and rates as presented?
I have
Go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead.
Private music lessons during school hours and after school?
Right. So,
Can you explain that?
yes. So we have trained professionals who come in, work with our students, provide lessons, could be during their, I think during the student study hall advisory, and then also might just be right after school and whatever. So we have a flat rate they're charged, $200 per fiscal year, and then they have access to use those practice rooms, etc. And they register through the front office and all of that.
The non-curricular student groups that are not sponsored by the district, they can still use the facilities for free. Is that what this is saying?
So, well, okay, so let's go to the classes. I think that'd be the best way to answer that question. So if you look at the one labeled, shoot, I just opened it. I should have read it first. So it's the facility rental organization categories. If you kind of look at that, that's a good place to kind of look at that. So really we have these classes. So class one would be, just internal events, school activities, including student organizations, alumni organizations, staff, etc., including Lincoln Way Foundation, booster clubs. They will all use our facilities at no charge, as long as that is just like for normal meetings, well, for students and all that, no, but, so if they...
Yeah, so my just to break down my question, so if it's not district sponsored, it's still students, they still are for free, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Because like Fellowship of Christian Athletes, we can't sponsor it, but our kids do it, so
Right.
they want to use the gymnasium.
I just was a little confused on the student equal access. I just want to make sure that even the non-district sponsored are still, okay. Is there any preference given for, based on these classes, especially when you start getting out of district versus in district, and is there any, I don't see anything on priority, or if I missed it.
Well, no, I mean, it really is a first come, first serve. So someone contacts us, so like for example, the only priority given is just obviously district. So if we had somebody scheduled in for a rental, and then whatever the reason we really actually needed the space, we might have to say to that person, hey, pick another weekend, or we just can't accommodate you. But otherwise, somebody calls in 6 months in advance, they're out of town for a profit, and when we say, okay, they want to use our auditorium, and we write up a contract, we've contracted with those people. Now, an in-district nonprofit comes in and says, oh, hey, we don't have this fundraiser, for whatever. Well, sorry, we can't break a contract and push somebody out for what we might say is a greater good, if you will. It's a binding contract. The only way we break that contract, we have language in there that says, hey, if the school district has a need, well, then we can break the contract.
So are all the baseball teams and everyone now signing contracts and they're using the fields?
Going forward, yes, we're going to be using a software program to help us with managing this, generating contracts, and getting those things done. Like I remind my staff, we don't build Rome overnight. We don't change. This is a large organization with a lot of moving parts. Will we be perfect on this? Absolutely not. But we're moving in the right direction to provide uniformity across the district and to make sure things are operating as much as possible.
Can we put this information on our website so that we can have something with our facility?
Sure, that's a good idea. We'll be putting together communications, once this is approved by the board, assuming it's approved, we'll be putting together communications to go out to our staff and to the long-standing rental people, that kind of thing. But I think it's a good idea to list this information on our webpage.
And then Brad, we're considering the 3 high schools. If someone wanted to, say, rent north do we put that in a separate category because maybe there's more cleaning or something, or how do we address that? Because if they say there's a different fee.
North would have to be on a special case only. You know, right now, all the rentals for the field house, for the field usage is going through the Frankfurt Square Park District.
That's fine. I just, if some organization came and we charge them a different fee, they're gonna say, well, your fee schedule says it's the same. I mean, just, maybe not, but okay.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a special case.
I
Really
agree.
good question, really good question. Any use of the building would have to be a long-term that we would have to bring back here.
Absolutely, okay. And then Brett, all these groups will have insurance as well?
Yes, so we have, there's a policy, I forget, but anyway, it's part of the process. They have to have insurance, they have to have proof and all of that. We have those certificates of insurance filed. And we'll also use that as another good thing. Right now, it's kind of a real manual process because, you know, a certificate of insurance can cover for the whole year. So now what we can do is we'll load this in the software. It'll have an expiration date when we load it. So then when that expires, it pops up and says, because everyone's expires differently, so they might give us one and their policy might only be for 3 more months. Well, then we'll have to remember, it pops up, okay, we got to reach back out, ask for the new certificate. So, perfect.
I also think it would be ideal to kind of, like we talk about the parking fees going towards paving, et cetera. I mean, this is use of our facilities, wear and tear. I think it should be going into more of the, you know, this should go towards facility and facility maintenance, and we should, you know, make sure it just doesn't kind of get soaked up into the main budget, because this is wear and tear on our facilities.
Yeah, these fees are recorded in the Fund 20, and so absolutely.
Anything else? I still need a motion and then a second. Motion, is there a second? Second. Motion and second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Thank you for that discussion. Next is the residency investigation contract. Entertain a motion to accept the residency investigation contract as presented in your package. Second. Motion and second. Discussion.
Yeah, just give you a quick overview. We've been using this company for a while to just do some investigation, specific work on specific cases to do with the residency. And this company has developed quite a database. As you see in the memo here, we talked with Crete Money and New Lenox School District 122. Both of them have been using this. So what this does, it provides an opportunity for the district to run our entire student database through their database, which matches against, I think they said it's 7 or 9 different proprietary databases that they have access to do an address match. So they're going to check to see the address that is listed on our records, which proves their residency, going to confirm to make sure that that's the address, like the U.S. Post Office, the IRS, you name it, they have this access to these databases. They're going to cross-check against that, make sure, and those are examples, I shouldn't say, you know. Anyway, so, and then when we come back with the list of any mismatches, then we will look at that, see how we should investigate that, and then we'll be able to move forward and making sure that the students living within the district are attending, but if you're not in the district, you go attend your district school.
Any other questions, Brett?
So we're currently using this company?
We are using them for one-off investigations on some residency
And I don't know
issues.
if we've used them at all this year. But in previous years, we have on selected investigations. So this past year, we did a number of our own.
They're Illinois based?
Yes, they're Shannon. Yeah.
I I would just make sure that we have their certificate from the IDFPR, just make sure that they're on file and in good standing as a licensed private investigative firm.
So we've had no investigations this year? Or
We've
not-
done.
Not used?
Yeah, Rob, have we used them this year?
We haven't used them this year. We
Yeah,
did.
we've done our own. This will give us a list, and then we determine how to approach the list of those conflicts. One option would be a letter from the attorney to all those families saying, this has been brought to our attention, but then we would determine, going through that list, how best to move forward.
So, because this is a pretty large number that they say could potentially be illegally enrolled, it's 100 students. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean this goes right into an investigation by them, right?
No.
That we're just paying this fee to do the initial work, and then we can decide how to approach the investigation.
So in the contract, they have, as an example, workers' compensation as an investigation. That wouldn't apply to what we're hiring them for.
No,
That would be an outside cost.
You're right.
Those are all scalable.
So,
This is for residency only, this contract, right? But they list several.
well, they're saying that these are additional items that they could help us with. It's kind of a blanket. We're just going to, what we're going to use them for is the residency. We're not going to use them for work comp surveillance or, any of these others. They're just saying, no, hey, look, we offer that service. If you'd like it, here it is. It's kind of an a la carte menu contract. I don't,
Any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. Call for a vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Next on the agenda item is ratification of collective bargaining agreement between Lincoln Way High School Board of Education District 210 and the Lincoln Way High Schools Education Association for years 2019 through 2021. Entertain a motion to accept the agreement as presented in your package.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
I think we should go over at least the percent, at least the high level, that presentation.
Moving into the board docs. Okay. So this has been a five-month process. 3 board members, 3 administrators, I believe 8 teachers, and throughout the 5-month process, there's certainly been some give and take, and some of the highlights from 2019 to 2012. Base increase in year 1 would be $200 for each cell. Year 2 would be $250. Year 3 would be $300. Coaching and activity stipends would be 3.3% increase. We've restored, or some coaching stipends have been restored, as well as some activity stipends have been restored. There is a contract reopener language in the event that there's a statewide property tax freeze, a pension cost shift, or changes in the evidence-based funding model, or any other state government action or inaction that reduces the district funding by more than $750,000 for either fiscal year 19 or 20. Estimated total increase cost of year 1 is $930,000. That would be about 2.2%. CPI is at 2.1. That's a known cost there. Estimated total increase in year 2 would be $597,000 or 1.37%. And then year 3 would be just over $1 million or 2.3%. Now, obviously, in years 1, 2, and 3, the assumption is we would be hiring at Master 6. But we won't necessarily always do that. The average 3-year of new money is 1.9%. And as we know CPIU for year 1 is 2.1, year 2 is 2.1, year 3 is unknown at this time. Total money over 3 years is just over $2.5 million, or 2.547. It does meet Board Policy 420 Action Plan of 3% surplus in each of those 3 years. And then that or board members feel free to. I guess the other high level, at the conclusion of this contract, their contract will still not be up to the cell amounts as it was in fiscal year 2015 before their previous agreement. So, I think they're still behind where they would have been step by step, cell by cell in 2015. It still allows the district to continue to run very healthy surpluses in the outgoing years, and as stated, exceed policy 420.
For the reopener clause, is that fiscal year 1920 or fiscal year 2020?
So that would be years.
That was the second,
third year.
Okay, that's just a typo that we have covered them.
Fiscal year 19 and 20. So that would be, you got the last 2 years, fiscal year.
Oh,
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
reopen,
yeah.
reopen.
19, 20, 20.
I got you.
Years started.
Yeah, we're 18, okay, we're fiscal year 18, okay.
So any of those things occur, property tax freeze, pen check, and reopener, just means we renegotiate the contract.
Go back to the table.
Just the financial.
Just the financials.
And those total increases in percentages, that takes into account the retirees.
Correct.
Money is subtracted from that, so it's.
We have a motion and a second before we go into public. We want to thank Ron, Aaron, and Joe. You guys spent a lot of time working on this, and obviously the teacher representation administration. We were meeting almost every Monday for a while there, or a lot of Mondays for a while. So.
January through May?
Yeah. Yeah, so
We're not counting.
appreciate your efforts. Just hopefully thank you all three of you for that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
And thank you for your hard work on that. All right, next is the non-union salaries for 2018-2019.
Your backup materials, I would ask that the board approve non-union salaries for other support staff, secretaries, technology, bus drivers, and mechanics as presented. We still have some discussions on administrative increases. This year, we would recommend, we have the elimination of 2 staff positions and then following increases for overall savings of $80,000. As you can see, the proposed administration, which we'll talk about later this evening, we would be down $175,000 from the previous year. Other support staff would be up $17,000 or 2%. Secretarial pool would be up $62,000 or 3.4%. Technology would be up 3.7%. Our bus driving would go down due to retirements, about $630,000. And then mechanics would be up about $8,000.
$630.
$630. That's all. I'm sorry, I was trying to get too fast. I apologize. So $629, my bad. And then, I think that's a lot of bus drivers. And then mechanics would go up just about $8,000. So it would be an overall savings from this year of $79,000, or down 0.75%.
My question is, are we approving this whole grid, or are we
No.
doing it less than administration?
Yes, less administration. So the recommendation at the top would be support staff, secretaries, technology, bus drivers, and mechanics. And other support staff is those support staff that are not in the union.
Understood. So the recommendation is that approve the non-union salaries, including other support staff, secretaries, technology, bus drivers, and mechanics as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any additional discussion or question? Hearing none, call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Next agenda item is the approval of the superintendent employment agreement for 2018 through 2023, and entertain a motion to approve the employment agreement as presented in your package.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
So I'm supportive of extending Dr. Tingley's contract at this time. You know, the 2 years I'm on the board, we've definitely had some improvements here. My concern is with the term of this contract being 5 years. Given where we are as a district, and we're in the very early stages of recovery, one of the big jobs of the board is, oversight of the superintendent, choosing the superintendent. The contract, while these are performance-based, they're really performance-based on student performance and academic improvement. The goals aren't really over a whole 5-year term. We really have, a lot of financial things coming up here that we need to be on top of. We have transition in our education administration. I'm more in the favor of you base this on performance, you set goals, and you extend over a period of time. It's very difficult for me to go to a 5-year, which is the max allowed by law, just straight away, given where this district has been and where we are now. But again, I want to make it clear that I'm in favor of extending Dr. Tingley's contract. I understand it's a year remaining, and I just don't think, given where this district is, that 5 years is the right.
Anyone else?
Well, I'll say as the veteran here tonight, it usually doesn't happen, but being here since 15 and being through what I've been through, I would make that motion as I did and take Dr. Tingley with me down that road for the next 5 years. If we're here, I think we've done well. And again, it is performance-based in the sense that it is a contract, but if he's not performing, whether it's on the students or negligent in his duties, I'm sure we would call him to task on that. It's not a guarantee, it's a contract.
Can you change the performance goals in that contract?
Those can be amended.
Correct. By the board, or does it take board and superintendent approval?
It would have to be agreed upon within the statute of the contract, but that would be a question for.
Because these are all short-term goals.
Correct. They're annual goals.
Right.
And so after 1 year, then when the board adopts a new set, then they become amended and part of this agreement.
Does the contract state that though?
If you read here, I can go right to it.
I see Chris's point that we have 1 year goals that we accomplish them or accomplish them.
Think about the opposite. If you set a 5-year goal and you're drastically off in year 3, but the person comes back and says, well, but I got 5 years to accomplish that. I mean, I can appreciate that, but it depends on the conundrum that gets created.
Right, but so the first year, all the goals are accomplished, I'm done for the next 4 years.
No.
That's.
We re-up it, we agree to it. Because that's, and
But then you
and
have to-
I'm going, my conversations with the Illinois Association of School Administrators, that your goals have to be an annual goal. Then once, those are what I'm evaluated on annually. Then, those goals have been accomplished. We have a next set of goals for the following year. We attach it to this, and then again, during my evaluation process.
But the parties, you being one party, the board being the other,
Sure.
have to agree to that second set of goals.
That would be my understanding. There's
Right,
subject
so what if we don't agree to
modification.
that second set of goals? What happened? They still have a 5-year agreement, but you have no goals to accomplish. Is that your point, Chris? Yeah. And I see what you're saying. It's more of a procedural question of what we do after the first year.
Give them another set of goals.
And he says, I don't agree with it.
And he has to walk away.
Does he?
Because you don't have a contract then, you broke a contract.
Your contract is divided out.
I'm going, Aaron.
Mike, I mean, we can do what you want to do here, we have a motion in a second, but.
But I just want to make sure that the agreement allows for us to come back in the second year and attach goals to your contract. But if we have to agree to it, it doesn't necessarily read that way. And that can put us in a position down the road, 2 years, where there's new people sitting up here, 3 years, and there's new 4 years, or whatever it is.
If reads that evaluations aren't mandatory year to year.
I'm just kind of piggybacking off what Chris said. That's all I'm letting you know. I mean, if there's an understanding here that we're going to come back in the next year and have to agree to a second set of goals, then I'm okay with it.
The goals will be delivered by the board. I guess I understand the nature of the contract creates a financial commitment over a certain period of time and certain ground rules that have been created. What I find interesting, maybe you can explain this to me, that if a board of, whether it's a board of education or a board of directors gave their chief administration officer a set of goals and the administrative officer said, I don't want those goals, it's insubordinated. I work under a contract. I report to a board of directors. For the life of me, I mean, you know, we might round a corner or sharpen an edge, but I couldn't imagine myself saying, no, I don't want those goals. The goals I want is I want to be able to color in a coloring book and write a fire engine and do work. Well, they wouldn't accept that.
Right.
They give me my goals. And I would probably fight the fact that they gave me there's a mission and there's a plan which we've established, so we know the direction we're headed. But I would probably come back and say, well, you've given me 5 years to do this? I would, that part I just can't quite wrap my head
I
around.
mean, I want to echo Chris' comments. I'm in favor. I just want to make sure that we're doing this the right way.
You can set goals that are longer term that have to be, you have to maintain, a certain financial standard or certain financial ratios or something like that. But these aren't the contract, while you can bring in some financial things, it's really linked to student performance and academic improvement. The performance-based contract. That's what's required by the Illinois statute.
So now I'm confused. Are you in favor of the contract? Are you in favor of the length of the contract?
No, the length of the contract.
Okay.
Flip side of the coin with the length of the contract, so what you're arguing, you might want to consider is, as you stated, we are going to have some turnover in the district of 2 to 3 principals at our school in the next several years. This allows for some continuity there. So we don't necessarily have complete turnover. We lost 2 of our 3 principals and a superintendent. And financially, as far as other superintendents in the area throughout the state of Illinois, so, on the lower end of the pay scale and the very modest increases. So there's a financial argument that can be made that this makes some sense as well to have that longer term. Just have a discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is 4 ayes and 1 no from Mr. Lucetti. The motion.
Thank you. Thank you for the discussion. Well done. All right, the final action item is the Will County 1-cent sales tax resolution. Yeah, let's discuss. This is still.
Okay, give us the latest update, Brad.
Yeah, so I just want to update the board. So this, initiative has been moving through Will County. As of today, about 36% of the boards of educations that represent, I don't know how the right way to say that, but when you look at the enrollment of population, right, 36% of the population has voted to move this measure forward. We've got a firm of about 46% of the population has said no, so it's pretty tight, if you will, and we have 2.7 or almost 3% have pretty much indicated they're not going to consider the measure, leaving the remainder, us being one, of undecided. Looking at the numbers and how it all stacks up, if this district chooses to not move forward, I would say, in my opinion, that the measure would probably not move forward.
So we saw this last month. There's a resolution there to adopt the Will County 1 cent sales tax resolution. Presentation has not changed since the last time. So at this point, we either need to have a motion to adopt the 1 cent sales tax resolution, which would then fall into one of those two buckets, or to not have a motion. So I'd entertain a motion to adopt the Will County 1 cent tax resolution number 2018-09.
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion?
And this is just allowing the question to go on the ballot.
Correct.
Not that we're
Absolutely.
instituting a 1 cent sales
You
tax
got it.
here. And that would be the entire Will County, not just the Lincoln Way district voting.
Right. I mean, the presentation is in.
I know, I just-
Right. You're absolutely right, Dennis.
I would say we do not spend any resources on this. I mean, people can vote, but I don't, this district should not be spending any resources on this. That would be my.
I understand.
Because I mean, the likelihood of this passing is, in my opinion, is close to 0. So I don't think we should be spending any time on it. I mean, I agree that we have to get off of property taxes, and if there was a way to do something, this might be. But when you can't even get 50% of the districts to agree, it's just a hard sell.
That's it. I'm just going to state it because I've been talking to people about that. That's where percentages come into play, because you got your bigger districts like Joliet, both the grade school and the high school said no. Well, they've got real estate taxes to burn. But they've got Center Point and other big things in their district that give them the appropriate funding, and it doesn't come from that base. So, the thing I hear more than anything, other than a couple other ancillary issues, is, wow, I got my real estate tax bill. You're sure getting a big chunk of that. And we got it, in my opinion, somewhere down the road, somebody's got to take that bold step. And yeah, Mike, the first mouse, it's always the second mouse that gets the cheese. So the first person through the door gets a bloody nose. I get it, might not pass the first time, but we got to inform ourselves. This path we're down is disastrous. It's only going to get worse.
You mean by relying on property tax?
Yes, by relying on property tax.
Not our path here.
No, the property tax. Thank you for clarifying.
Just want to make sure someone.
Well, but in a way, it could,
But yes.
it could trip us as well.
Right.
We're always threatened with things like property tax freezes. Whoops. What does that do?
Yeah, again, I'm always in favor of letting people have a choice, and if it's on the ballot, that's fine. I'm just saying I would not be in favor of spending any district resources in promoting this.
I understand.
I don't think we would be allowed. Would we be allowed to spend any resources to promote this?
I don't know. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd have to be set up as a separate,
Yeah.
just like you would do with the referendum.
Right. But I think.
We have a motion in.
Just one more quick. So what you said earlier, so if this resolution passes, does this put us over 50%?
No.
As of right now, we're not, but definitely without it, it's probably not going to happen.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
We're not big.
Without yeah, we're definitely would be struggle to get to 50.
Just to reiterate, we're only saying that it's going on the ballot, so there's no confusion as to what's, no conflict of equal choice.
All right, call for a vote.
The vote is open. The vote is 4 ayes and 1 no from Mr. Lulo. The motion passes.
Thank you. 20 action items. Thank you for your attention. Next are the informational items. First one is the report of the Lincoln Way Special Ed District 843 Governing Board meeting held on May 22nd.
I attended that meeting. Basically, our interim business manager is truing up, working with the business managers. We'll be able to close the year on schedule. Probably the big question that everybody's been asking, whether through phone call or email, is 161 status. The superintendent did send a memo email to 843 indicating that as long as there was no changes in the education, the management, the financial commitment of 843, that 161 would continue to be with them for the next 2 years. And then basically they still have to would give an 18-month notice. So in essence, it'll be several years moving forward. So that was some good news to hear the other day. That pretty much is it. We're advertising for a business manager. We'll see how that goes moving forward now that maybe there's some stability, because a few people were a little questioning if the district was going to stay or not and not knowing if they wanted to jump in, so maybe that'll get some resumes coming. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ron. Any questions of Ron? Next, FOIA requests.
FOIA requests are included in your backup materials. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any comments about the FOIA requests? If not, building and grounds report.
Also included in your backup materials, any questions, we can do our best, or we can answer back to you. Mr. Wilkie is out now.
Any other questions regarding buildings and grounds?
I have tons, but since I'm not here, very detailed report.
We'll let them know. Next, audit findings.
Nothing new to report. Oh, wait a minute, what'd you have, Brad?
Yeah, boy, I almost missed that opportunity. Boy. Okay. No, in the audit findings, one of the audit findings that we're working through to get all these cleared. One of the audit findings we have is regarding our GASB 34, which really states that the district needs to maintain a fixed asset records and calculate depreciation like a for-profit taxable entity would. We don't, historically it's not been required, so this is a new requirement to come on a few years ago. We do keep track of our assets, but we don't keep track of them in that manner where we capitalize and depreciate and all of that. All of that being said, I've reached out with a company, Asset Control Group, and got a quote for what it would take for us to rectify this. Basically, it would be a $10,000 project, have them come in, help us get the asset records all compiled, and then we would begin tracking that. It would be the goal of the district that then we would take that over and try to manage that in-house. If we needed additional help, it'd be $750 a year for some additional help from them. If we got to the point where we had to re-inventory because the auditors didn't feel we had kept it up, well, it'd be another $10,000 fee. So just want to give you kind of the cost of that. From my perspective, this is a low on the list of items that I believe need cleared off of our audit. There's a lot. I had this same audit comment in my prior district. A lot of districts, this is kind of a new reporting requirement, haven't got up to speed. It's in some aspects it's kind of immaterial to our financials because it's just where they're trying to put us on a for-profit comparison basis. What's important to us is our fund accounting. So this is lower on my list. What's higher on my list is our internal control studies and things like that. So if, you know, the board wanted to say, okay, we'll put some money towards something like this, I would be in line to say, well, I wouldn't spend it on a GASB 34 fixed asset study. I would spend some money on having the external auditors help us through the internal control process and that. So anyway, I wanted to provide that update on the audit findings, and I'd take any feedback you'd love to give me.
Any comments or questions regarding that?
So how much would the auditors charge us to have them come in and do an internal control?
I haven't asked that, but I'll be glad to get that because I think that'd be a good thing for us to do.
Getting a little too excited about asking the auditors.
But they could provide good exterior independence that would, you know, I think would be valuable. So I can definitely get that for us. Okay.
Doesn't our Inspector General's firm also do that?
They do that
Is
as well.
is there a benefit to having another party also look at it instead of the auditors? Because you have the auditors already looking at it.
Right.
And then, so I would just throw that out there for someone else to look at.
Would that need to go out for bid, or just in the conversation, just so where they charge for that?
It's a professional service, so it's exempt from bidding. I would just simply, we can solicit some quotes. But I totally agree with you. I threw out auditors, kind of more generic. I probably wouldn't use our current auditors. I use another firm because I think it's good to have multiple looks.
Difficult for them to audit their own
Exactly.
control presentation. Not impossible. I'm sure they can charge.
Okay, so just want to recap, so there's no surprises when the audit comes back. We're not going to, I'm getting the feeling, we're not going to move forward, spend $10,000 to clear that comment, so we'll have that comment
We're
again.
not going to clear it anyway. It's
Well, no, actually, I could clear it before audit.
I'm saying we spent the money and we're going to.
If you told me tonight that was absolutely, you wanted it done, I'd call them tomorrow. I've got a schedule for August. We would have that fixed asset inventory done. We'd have the GASB 34 done, and then present it to the auditors and we clear the comment. I should have made that clear at the beginning. Yes, we are prepared to clear that comment this year, but it's going to cost us $10,000 to do it.
Will it cost us money eventually to clear it anyway?
Yes, there's no way to clear the comment without having someone help us do, we just don't have the manpower to do that ourselves.
But there's no penalty for not doing it that's going to cost us $10,000.
The penalty is a comment on your audit.
I would be in favor of trying to clear as many comments as we can. I mean, we just heard we're going to have a sizable surplus this year. And we're talking $10,000 to clear a comment off the audit. Something that they've been asking us to do for about 2 years now.
I think from a risk standpoint, though, I'm more in favor of spending our time and resources on the policies and procedures.
I'm not saying do, I'm saying do both.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a certain, I mean, there's a time element, I believe. I mean, we have.
Well, yes, the internal controls, that's going to take a lot more time and energy. That's not going to be cleared. That comment's not going to be cleared this year. We're working, but we'd love to have some additional help on that.
What is the cycle time for them to prepare the asset list that would get that audit finding?
This is what they told me when I talked to them, but I got the quote. I said, what's our timeline? They have a slot in August. They say they can turn around this in about 10 days, get it to the auditors, and auditors just want the number to plug on the sheet. So, but if we're going to do this, I guess, now I understand, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. We were saying, if we're going to do this and you wanted to clear the audit comment, we've got to act today. If you tell me you're going to tell me on August 2nd, I'm telling you, we'll clear it next year.
Well, okay. Well, here would be my suggestion. Be that you get pricing as Chris Michetti had recommended on the internal audit, or the internal functions that you mentioned. We have this one. Obviously, we can look our auditors in the eye, because you share this as well, but they're both in process. But you've gone into a vendor selection process, you're not ignoring them, and then you can bring both back. And then to Aaron's point, that if you close the fiscal year
and we find, okay, wow, we're actually gonna borrow less next year, and you come back and say it's gonna cost $35,000 and this will all be done by January 1, now we have a decision to make. 25,000 is to do internal controls, 10,000 is to do the others, and they say, well, we can't get you back on the schedule till October. We understand that. We figure the desks and chairs will be here in October.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Yep, fair enough, I'll get the numbers.
But I appreciate that, because that's good to hear that we're evaluating those and trying to put costs. At some point, we do have to get those checked off the list.
But again, I think just from your standpoint, I think the internal controls is an actual risk. The capital assets is something that isn't actually, I don't view that as a financial risk, that's more of a reporting issue that they're bringing up because, if something's changed. So I think I just want you to be clear to us, Brad, on, how the internal controls has to be a priority over capital assets.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it. That's how I would say it. Is internal controls is an actual risk factor. Capital assets is a reporting function because we already maintain and have an internal asset control. Brian Murphy maintains that. We keep track of items. Things aren't just walking away. That's not a risk control factor. This is a reporting. This other, though, that's actually control of risk. That's why it's a higher priority to me.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't do the internal controls. I'm saying maybe if we could do them both, start down the internal control path also at the same time. Get that other one cleared. Let's get the other one cleared.
I think to bring us back to cycle time for both to be completed. When you ask that, how long is it a 6-month process for the internal controls? Because obviously it's a shorter cycle time to be up.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Audit findings, budget update, 2019 fiscal year budget update.
Okay, this really is flowing in. Maybe we just kind of handle these two things kind of together. So if you look at it, posted in there for your information is an updated budget calendar. And really the only difference is what the board kind of asks, let's start to get our TAWs lined up for 2018. So we've been working on that. Met with Old Second. Old Second indicated that, we got the feds bringing up increase, and we also have another potential increase in September. So basically what Old Second said is, if we had a commitment from the district, we could kind of lock in our rates pre the September 30th hike. Whether there is one or not, who knows, but this is on the table. So I prepared in here for you to look at what would it be if we were going to go ahead and do that. So if we were going to do that, we would need to adopt our budget, adopt our tax levy, and then right then immediately set a parameters resolution for the tax anticipation warrants, all in the same meeting. I checked with legal counsel to make sure that that was legal, and it is legal because the board will, even though we haven't filed it with the actual agency, but the board's already approved it, so it's a legal binding tax levy. So that would certainly be a possibility, but it does step everything up a month at least. So anyway, that's the budget update. And on bigger picture, the budget development process is moving along just fine. We'll be ready for our first presentation to you on August 2nd. But I wanted to just bring this timeline just for consideration. Now we can then talk about the cash flow when we're ready. If you have questions on the budget cover.
Because they're going to flow together.
Yes. All right. So just flowing right into the next thing. In your packet of information is the 2019 estimated cash flow. I will say right off the bat that this document already is obsolete. However, it's as good estimate as we have at the moment. As we had a few hours ago, now we actually know our tax, what we collected in our tax levy today. So as anything, it needs to be constantly updated. So we will update this with the known what we got, but it's good, accurate projection for a whole year's worth of cash flow. I think if you want to flip to the last page of it, was the most important. Let's just kind of run through that. So if you see here, estimating revenues of 107 million, expense of this is on a cash flow basis, same net change in our TAWs, down 6 million. So you can see on the far left bottom, estimating that we would need about 18.6 million of TAWs next year. By the end at 6/30, we would have only about, we're estimating about 15 million of outstanding TAWs. That's substantially going in the right direction. You can see all laid out there, summarized. The mechanism behind the cash flow is we're using the actual ratios and percentages that we actually captured during this current year, during 18, and using those roll forward. The one I did for 18, I used off of what had been prepared in previous years. Now we're working off of the data that I've collected and captured. So excited to see how we move, how it goes moving forward. We continue to report every month update it, every month report on where the variances on the cash flow estimate is. So with that, entertain any questions, and just understand that the document needs a living, breathing document, has to be updated. We get information almost every week that affects it, and we update it and keep it current.
Any questions for Brad regarding the budget conversation or the cash flow that's presented?
Just assume we pay down these dollars and better, because the cost of borrowing is going to keep going up every year. And
Good news is we won't only need less next year, we'll need it for a shorter amount of time. Duration. Yeah, duration, that's the, gotta keep on less and so, Brad, do you anticipate drawing next year?
So anticipate, so thank you, Dr. Kingley. Sometimes I should write out some more notes, I apologize. But one of the things I really want to stress that I will be asking the board to do next year is we will be doing more interfund loans. And what that allow us to do is it's going to allow us to maximize our internal revenue or internal cash flow as much as possible, because we can transfer between the different operating funds. By doing that, we're going to not need to draw estimated until January 16th. So remember, we needed to draw by November of this year. But if you remember, we were doing draws on the ed fund when we had surpluses setting in O&M or transportation. So by being able to do interfund loans and then pay them back within the same fiscal year, we're going to be able to push our borrowing down as far as we can, hence reducing the amount of our TAW interest.
Any other questions? Thank you, Brad, for that update.
You're welcome.
Community relations report.
Community relations is included in your backup materials, and these pictures of the 3 graduations right there. Have a chance to look at them.
Any questions regarding the community relations report? If not, asset of the month.
Asset of the month is boundaries, neighborhood boundaries at home. Notice daily what happens in your neighborhood, at school. Talk with students about their neighborhood boundaries and in the community. Work to create strong neighborhood bonds, sponsor activities that encourage neighbors to get to know each other a little better.
Thank you. Next, policies, first reading.
Policies, first reading, it is primarily footnotes. Footnote changes in there are the notes and then the adjacent policies. We'll bring these back in August, so if you have any questions prior, please get those to me and I'll be ready to address those at the next meeting.
Legislative report.
Really, the only action has been, the budget has been passed, and then we'll just kind of wait to see how that plays out moving forward. It appears that it'll be in good shape, but you never know as this continues to evolve. But the budget has been passed and stricted.
Okay. Superintendent's report.
Superintendents in county district other businesses we'll do both together tonight, if that's okay. And there is the memo from Dr. Tony Smith that Illinois will be going to the SAT, as Dr. Murphy mentioned. I think that's fantastic because now they've picked a lane and we have at least 3 years to focus on one thing. So we're excited about that and we'll attack that. Another topic, you know, Aunt Nancy's has pulled out of the 3 buildings, and so there is the discussion of what next, what to do. There is an individual interested in possibly opening a child care center at East. You know, the last time we went through an RFQ, we went through a process. We had a teacher, a couple administrators involved in the interviewing process. It was clear that at the time Aunt Nancy's was the only viable option. So moving forward, there has not been interest expressed at Central or West at this time, but there has been an individual express interest in East. The timing is such they would not be able to open until at least end of September, early October, which I think would be a risk once people find childcare. But I guess what I bring to the board is don't necessarily need to do the 3 or 4 month rehash as we've done in the past, but the space is available. Do we give this individual, do we vet this individual, give them the opportunity at our current rate agreement that we had with Nancy Power and move forward, or out of the business altogether? You know, this can certainly be something we can discuss over the next month, but you know, I would not recommend putting together the whole RFQ and taking it 3 months as we did the last time. This individual is a known commodity, but once again, there's an inherent risk for that individual not knowing what the enrollment will be.
Does it pose a problem that we will be putting this out for?
Can you speak up, please?
It doesn't pose a problem. I mean, we as I said, we can always we can put the RFQ back out on the table. If we did something like that, it would have to be, I believe, for the following school year. You know, but that's something, if the board would like us to do, we can get that together and throw that out in the fall. But once again, knowing what's out there, you know, we would be limited.
We haven't heard about any other outside interest other than this one individual?
There's been phone calls, but nothing substantial where it would be, they understand our payment structure, they understand what we're looking at. The other companies that I've heard from were not involved in the process the last time, did not take the tours, did not do the measurements. So no one that was involved the last go around has contacted us.
Questions, comments on that topic? Aaron?
I mean, if we went with this individual, they wouldn't even be able to be open until October. I mean,
they would be able to be open in the fall.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like a viable option for the start of the school year, so I mean, I don't know why they would want to kind of rush through it.
No, and one of the issues, once they find child care, I don't know that they would pull their
You
child.
change your habits, I mean,
Yeah.
you have a whole schedule of stuff down there.
I don't
You have a time issue. You also have an aging teacher population where that's the whole problem that Nancy's ran into, where you only have a certain number of kids, so the pool is shrinking as well. So I mean, you have 2 things working against you.
Oh, eventually.
In this individual, I don't know anything about this individual. Are they already vetted through DCFS?
That they started the process last Thursday.
So, I mean, we're talking, with all due respect, we're talking about a government agency here that can take extended time.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it would be September, October at the earliest.
That's optimistic, I guess.
Yes, correct.
Any direction for?
I just wanted thought, you know.
I mean, even if you did an RFQ, you'd have to have somebody that's state certified, and obviously they're not, so even the one party that's interested couldn't even apply.
Yeah, at this point.
Right.
If we followed the same procedures as we did last time, correct?
I mean, there's a financial vetting that's got to go with this as well. Do they have the resources to maintain and sustain?
It's a lot in a short window.
Actually, yes.
And I,
No, just the only other thought is, I mean, you know, there comes a point here where we've got space in these 3 buildings now. Do we like cordon off the space so that next year somebody can come in and do this? Do we make a commitment that says, you know what, hey, that's been done, it's over, we're moving forward, so that space could be utilized for other opportunities?
Do you do the survey monkey again like we did and see what people think of that could be utilized?
I guess it's, yeah, I think there's got to be some tipping point here that we either let everybody know that, no, we're not going to do this anymore, thank you very much, or, yeah, maybe next year. But, you know, there's things that, I guess I'll just go back to what I said before, the space. I mean, since they're dormant, is there other things that we can challenge administration that could have a higher or better use? I don't know. So.
And plus, you're talking about a solution which one school without the other 2. So if you were to think that you were going to go forward and try and in all 3 schools, you need scale to make this work. So you're basically taking that away, and it just seems like I don't know, seems like someone that doesn't even have the certifications and went past our RFQ last time. It just seems like an even bigger risk.
And I do think it would be a challenge if we have one company in one company in another, and one company in the third. It becomes a little bit more of a management issue for us.
Well, last time, did Nancy was the only one that went through the RF?
No, we had a couple others. So we had paperwork to go through, go through the interview process. Well, then, I guess maybe Ron, if we even ask our staff, would you be willing to start date of October 1? Because if you've got 6 teachers, because I really believe that once they find.
Well, no, I'm just thinking you're making a promise to.
Yeah, you're right.
I've had several clients that are in the daycare or trying to bring in daycare. When they hit their DCFS window, it just becomes a little bit of an abyss.
Yes.
And they find, you know, different things. And I'm not saying this person wouldn't pass flying colors. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that there's an unknown variable there that this could easily kick into the next calendar year. And you're creating a potential of hope that might not be there. I think the bigger issue to Ron's survey may be the need on a go-forward basis for the 1920 year. And if it comes back and there's not a critical mass there, then I think the challenge would be back to you and to Rich and to whoever else. Okay, what do we do with this space? That's very fair. All right, thank you. That's good discussion. Appreciate you bringing that up. Any other board comments or correspondence at this time? Nothing? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session. Board of Education will go into closed session for the following reasons: appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of employees, establish sale or lease price of real estate, and litigation. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? There will be no action after closed session.